Okay, the meeting will come to order, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Bunton?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Hill?
Here, yes.
Here. Menzer?
Here.
Announcements, acknowledgements. Oh, we need a motion to excuse Mayor Dempsey.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Campbell?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes.
Crop?
Yes.
Menzer?
Yes.
Bunton?
Yes.
Okay, now we come to announcements, acknowledgements, and communication and reports. I guess we should start with the presentation by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation on its redevelopment-ready community report of findings for the city of Mount Clemens.
Hello, everyone. My name is Debbie Newman. I'm the RRC planner for the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. To my left here is Nicole Brown. She's the community assistance team member for your region. Today, I'm here to talk about our presentation, talking about the recap of the process so far, the reporting of findings, and what the next steps are going to be. The Redevelopment Ready Communities program works to empower communities to shape their future and maximize their economic potential through creation of solid planning, zoning, and development processes. The way that we do this is looking to have a predictable development process that's good for your developers and your citizens looking to do business within your community. So through the report, we have green, yellow, and red. So you're going to see there's actually quite a bit of yellow, which means that there's a little bit of work that needs to be done. What this does is the evaluation begins through going through the best practices, through research, meeting observations, interviews, and a review of your development materials. In order to receive certification, a community must demonstrate that all the best practice criteria have been met. So far, 5 communities have met certification: Roseville, Allegan, and East Point in 2014, and Lathrop Village, Boyne, and Ypsilanti in 2015. Over the next several slides, we'll review the areas where Mount Clemens has excelled and where work needs to be completed. So green indicates that you've met your best practices. Yellow, that means you're in the process of meeting those components, but there is some additional work that needs to be done. And red, well, that's just some work that we need to do. As indicated report, there are multiple sections that are yellow. However, a lot of that really hinges on your master plan update. So we'll kind of go through that. Best Practice 1.1 evaluates your community plans and how the redevelopment vision is incorporated into the city's documents. Your master plan was updated and was adopted in 2010, is in the process of finalizing an update that includes the downtown and corridor plan. To be in compliance with the Michigan Planning and Enabling Act and RRC best practices, the city must draft and adopt a 6-year capital improvements plan. Public participation. The best practice evaluates how well the city...
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Do you want us to ask questions throughout the program?
Sure.
Or do you want, I mean, when we have a question on that page,
Oh, sure.
how would you?
You can, if you want to ask during that section, it's completely fine.
I just wondered on the capital improvement plan, because we don't have a plan at all, how are we yellow?
Well, when going through your self-evaluations, I was told that you were in the process of creating one. So, and I guess with the green, yellow, and red, it is really, it can be a little subjective. I mean, we do work a lot in the gray. But knowing that Brian Tingley, he was at the recent capital improvement plan training, and along with knowing that you guys are working on it, I decided to give you a yellow.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You'll earn it.
Public participation. It evaluates how well the city identifies and engages the community and its stakeholders. The Planning Commission endorsed a comprehensive public participation strategy on March 1st and is awaiting formal adoption at a city council meeting. The city has shown excellent public outreach and should work to communicate the results of your public participation process and track your outreach activities. And the way that I came to that conclusion, I was looking through your master plan, your 2010 master plan, and looked at all the different ways in which you went and did outreach with the community.
It mentioned that we have social networking pages, which we don't currently have any social networking pages. I mean, we have the DDA page, but that doesn't really count as,
Okay,
it's not a city-run. So I
Yeah,
just wondered, I mean, there were things that were in this as public participation, ways to communicate with, which I found that were not to be true. And
Okay.
so I just wondered
Sure.
why that's in here.
Okay, well, I remember from when I was I saw some stuff on YouTube. So while it might not be specific, directly linked to your page, that's something that I felt.
I think that's a little stretch, but
Okay.
okay.
Well, I mean, you are having a new public participation plan, so that's something we'd like to see
Okay.
in the future. All right, your zoning regulations. Best practice 2.1 evaluates the city's zoning ordinance to determine how well it regulates for and implements the goals of the master plan. Since the master plan is in process, the zoning code will need to be reviewed to support the implementation of and align with the vision outlined in your master plan. The city recognizes the importance of mixed-use residential, and the zoning ordinance allows for it in your central business district. To attract talent and retain residents that want to age in place, the city should incorporate additional non-traditional types of housing in that zoning. That's just a recommendation from me. And also to align with the best practices. Slide 7, development review policies and procedures. This best practice evaluates the city's site plan review process. Site plan review is being completed through the Community Development Division, and the process is documented within your zoning ordinance. Applicants have the option to meet with staff involved through the site plan review to look at those proposed projects. To better prepare for the unexpected, such as staff turnover or an extended leave of absence of a key employee, the city should document internal procedures for the development review. I conducted a few interviews with your developers, and they said that the staff are very, very professional and extremely helpful. The city should develop a formal customer feedback mechanism in order to track the successes and what you can do to improve your processes.
When I read your summary for best practice 3.1, there were several things that you mentioned that I thought were on point and were very specific about things that we had and things we didn't have. But then I don't think the yellow, red, and green matched that narrative.
Okay.
I thought that 4 out of 6 were specific things that you mentioned that we didn't have, but then were marked yellow. So I think it's confusing when we give mixed messages.
Okay.
Because citizens a lot of time, or people who are going to look at this report, like you said, if it's a different person, they're going to go to this, which is it's a very visual, great tool.
Sure.
And then it doesn't represent what you found. And so I think that I found that confusing
Okay.
and to be misrepresented. And I think we have a lot of work to do, and you have specific great things in this document, but then it kind of negates it with the findings on the charts.
Okay.
It's just I keep finding
Sure.
it.
I just think that, the yellow doesn't mean we've achieved anything, it doesn't mean that we are there, it just means that that's an area that we're working in. And I think that all of the yellows are shadowed parts of what we are doing. It's just that it's not blatant, it's not open, it's not visible yet. But we can make it that way in the near future, and that's why it's not green, it's yellow. But it wouldn't be red by any chance. And so there are things that are being done that do mirror what we're talking about here in the yellows.
And you have my card too, so if you have any concerns, feel free to email me. Best Practice 3.2 evaluates how accessible planning and development information is to the public. Development information can be found on your website, but I found that it was difficult to find. It's important to have a guide that is relevant, that has all the relevant information for your development processes, so that applicants have one easy, one-stop shop to be able to find what they're looking for. When I was looking for a site, or for a fee schedule, I wasn't able to find one on your website, so it's kind of scattered throughout on some of your documents, but it wasn't very easy for me to figure out. So that's something that should be incorporated into this guide to development. The recruitment orientation best practice evaluates how the city recruits board, committee, and commission members and what the orientation process is like. If a resident is interested in serving on a board, committee, or commission, they can call the city clerk or fill out an application online. To improve your application process, expectations, desired skill sets should be developed and listed on your website. Once the position has been filled, roles and responsibilities should be outlined in an orientation packet. The education and training best practice assesses how a community encourages and tracks training for officials and staff. The city does budget for training. However, training needs for boards and commissions should be reviewed, tracked, and covered under a dedicated line item in your annual budget. Best Practice 5.1 evaluates how the city identifies, visions, and markets priority redevelopment sites. Your 2010 master plan identified the downtown Riverfront District and Railroad District as opportunities for redevelopment and growth. Now that those areas have been identified, the city needs to narrow their focus on their priority redevelopment sites and market them. Assembling priority sites into a property information package and posting that information online will give developers a better understanding of the background of that site and what potential for development's there. And then best practice 6 covers economic development strategy, marketing, and promotion. The city has not had a formal economic development strategy or marketing strategy. However, the forthcoming master plan will have that outlined and include a plan for implementation. So what are the next steps? Within the next 30 days, we require the City Commission to adopt a resolution wanting to proceed with the program. The adoption shows that the city is willing to work with the MEDC to implement the actions in order to become certified. Once the resolution has been adopted, the city staff are required to provide quarterly progress reports to us just to show what's being completed and also keeping you informed on what's going on.
What's an average timeline for completion?
It really varies. I forgot to mention that in the beginning. So when you have there were timelines I identified. Those were just my estimates, just based off of your master plan update. But it's really kind of, sometimes like zoning will take a while. So it's really dependent on how quickly. Some things just are a little bit quicker to finish than others. So those don't, with the timeline that I put on there, you're not held to it. Just as long as the quarterly progress reports keep coming and you let us know how you're doing, then.
Of the 6 or 7 that you've done, what are the extremes?
So I've only been an RC planner for 4 months, so this is my first presentation.
Okay.
So you're my first community.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you. So I'm not sure, but I can get you that information.
Yeah.
And overall, you guys are doing great. So There's work to be done, but, you know, we would like to continue working with you. And do you have any other further questions?
So first of all, I'd like to thank the MEDC for coming in and doing this study for us. I think it's identified some things, and what I got out of your report is that a couple of things that I see are the most important are the comprehensive CIP, that's essential. The community economic development strategy, that's essential. And to update the zoning ordinances, as you said, that's going to take some time, but that is essential and ties together with, you know, a community development, economic development strategy. So I really thank you for pointing those things out. In addition, the strategic plan that we worked on actually has some of the components. There's a component for, you know, for marketing in there, and I believe Commissioner Bunton is the lead on marketing according to the strategic plan, and I'm the lead on development of the waterfront area. I think Mayor Dempsey was neighborhoods, or was that you, Campbell? So that was Commissioner Campbell. So we've identified those areas, but we haven't pushed to get anything done. So because of the benefits of being an RRC community, I thank you very much for coming in, because maybe this will spur us to enact and investigate some of the areas we identified in the strategic plan, which of course are included also in the master plan. So I just would like to say thank you and encourage Mr. Tingley to proceed with the RRC program and a motion for council.
Debbie Newman.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, are there any other announcements or communications? No? Okay, moving along, adoption of the agenda. Need a motion?
Move to adopt the agenda as presented?
Second.
Roll call?
Hill,
Yes.
Crop,
Yes.
Menzer,
Yes.
Bunton,
Yes?
Campbell.
Yes.
Okay, now is the time for public participation. If you wish to speak, please come to the microphone, give your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Monica Baker. I live at 636 Huntington Street. I moved here from Sterling Heights in July. I received a letter August 27th regarding your limited sidewalk repair program. 4 of my sidewalks were tagged, 2 of which were flat, 2 that were raised. I have pictures to show. I contacted on September 16th, I contacted Mr. John, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, Denemy, and I had a couple questions. The only question he could answer for me is that the city code for sidewalks is anything an inch or over is considered a trip hazard. I wanted to know why I was the only resident on Huntington Street that had sidewalks tagged. I also asked how I could appeal the decision that 4 sidewalks were tagged, but only 2 needed to be repaired. And I was informed there was no appeals process. So he suggested that I contact Mr. Tingley. Okay, on September 21st, I sent an email to Mr. Tingley, explaining the situation, asking him my questions. I also sent it to Mr. Steve Brown, and I received absolutely no response from either of them. So on October 2nd, I called Mr. Brown's office and spoke with him and asked him the same questions, and I did not get any satisfactory answer. I don't understand why there's not an appeals process, why no one would come out and take a look at what this contractor that you hired determined what was necessary to replace and what was not. I had this happen to me in the city of Sterling Heights. There was an appeal process. Someone did come out and untag two that were not necessary. But I understand here there is no appeals process. So, needless to say, now this was from August to October. My sidewalks were dug up on December 2nd. I come home December 2nd, and here is a nice note on my front door that the contractors had broken the gas line because they did not use Miss Dig services. So you might want to look into contractors that you hire to make sure they're going to do a job properly. So I was without heat from 5 o'clock until almost 11 o'clock at night. I have a small child in my house. I'm raising a 4-year-old grandson. And so I was very inconvenienced, very annoyed that no one from the contracting company or the city could call me. I would think the contractor would have informed you guys. Also, I got my bill now, dated April 19th, but it wasn't mailed until May 3rd. And it says I have 30 days to pay this, net 30, or a 5% penalty will be added. So is it 30 days from when the invoice date, May 19th, or is it 30 days from May 4th when I received it? Little confused, can't seem to get answers. But I don't feel that I should have to pay for 2 sidewalks that there was absolutely nothing wrong with. And I know that...
Okay, I'm sorry, your time is
Okay,
up.
thank you.
But,
I would appreciate someone investigating it and getting back to me, especially Mr. Brown. That seems to be his
you can
department.
get in touch with her, right?
I can. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
At her address.
Thank you.
Laura Fournier, 70 Lodwick Street. First of all, I apologize for losing at the last commission meeting. I was very, very upset. But when you spend a lot of money on sidewalks and someone comes along and breaks them all up and there's absolutely nothing wrong with them, it's a very upsetting thing to happen. I figure I've spent, it wasn't just one corner either, Mr. Brown, as you noted in your comments. I've done 3 of those corners in addition to that one. This, similar to what Ms. Baker here has just talked about, was done not on a uniform basis. There was one homeowner who went out and said to your contractor, my sidewalk is perfectly fine, do not tear it up. They didn't tear it up. So instead of talking to homeowners, he got, his sidewalks saved. Mine, of course, got all wrecked up because my husband, who's handicapped, couldn't get out there fast enough. I have done my research. There are so many violations of the U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Highway Administration guidelines for handicapped and handicapped accessible sidewalks. It's ridiculous. But we chose, this city, to spend federal money, our tax money, on breaking up perfectly good sidewalks when the handicapped person can roll 2 flags later and get whacked out of the cart. I'm really trying not to get upset, but it's very upsetting to me, especially when I've been coming up here for so long. And it's such a blatant waste of money. What Ms. Baker described is exactly also what I complained about. It's just a hit and miss program on these sidewalks. I saw homeowners that got one section tagged, not another. I saw homeowners like her who got tagged that I couldn't even find the inch. It was indiscriminate, it was not uniform, and it was not fair. I believe that we have to address this sidewalk issue in a fair manner, in accordance with the ordinances that this city has put out. I received a lot of comments after the last commissioners' meeting. None of them were negative towards me. Most of my neighbors believed that ripping out those sidewalks was the stupidest thing they ever saw in their lives. I also want to know what's going to happen to the landscape. You've now got a tilt on that sidewalk where the dirt's just going to wash right out. And what are you going to do about it? There's no lip, there's no curve, nothing. I don't know if you're going to put an inside curb there. I have the barrels and sticks have been laying around now for a week. Nothing happened with those, just drove by on my way here. Still there. And the other thing, if anyone would take a little walk down Church, those sidewalks were not done in a uniform manner. You've got all kinds of little triangles now the weeds can grow out of. Take a look, people. This was not a good job.
Thank you.
Gloria Heller, 260 Cass. I'm going to be kind of like an echo for Miss Baker and Miss Fournier. Welcome to Miss Baker. It's not going to be another day in paradise because that's not where you are. Unless you live in the southwest quadrant. Oh, you do? And Miss Fournier, I would like to recommend that she contact the ADA, find out what the rules were for sidewalk surfacing slant on the date her work was done and what they are now, and see how much of a difference there is, and get a ruling from them on whether or not your sidewalks had to be torn up. Because you'll notice that now that you've gotten kind of noisy and obnoxious and in the city's way of what it wants to do, you're going to become targeted. Not a doubt in my mind. And they can hide behind plausible deniability. You don't know what it means? Look it up. This is a textbook example of plausible deniability. They can deny that they're targeting her, and it's plausible because, you know, if she wants to put up with it, fine. Now, at the last meeting, I just wanted to let Commissioner Menser know that Starks has gotten quite a bit of regard from the city. I nominated them and they got a big deal, Local Treasure Award 2013. B. Stark was a leader and so on, and we all knew about it. We know about him, and we know about the businesses that have been in the city a long time, which is why I was kind of, and the people who have helped the city for a long time. This year I nominated somebody who's been around for like 30 years working with children and with the city. And the one that wins is some little local trinket junk shop in the downtown. And then I figured it out. I FOIA'd the nomination sheets. And it didn't go to the nominee, it went to the nominators. A couple people live on South Wilson. So if I'd known that was the name of the game, I wouldn't have bothered to nominate mine. Okay. Dial-A-Ride. You need to know a little bit about what you're voting on before you vote on it. I rode Dial-A-Ride for 2 years. I'd say 45 weeks out of the 52, at least 4 times a week, I know all about Dial-A-Ride. When you're talking about your no-shows, you got to know why the no-shows are. I did that a couple times. You know why? They tell you 10 to 30 minutes, and I know it's public transportation, but when it gets to be an hour and 40 minutes and you're late, you get another ride. Then you're called a no-show. The no-shows on the part of the riders, in my experience from riding it, and I'm sorry Jeff isn't here tonight because I discussed this with him and he said, yeah, you're right. The no-shows are half the riders and half Dial-A-Ride not showing in a reasonable amount of time. So,
Sorry, your time's up.
oh, that's okay. I can save it till next time. I got plenty.
Okay.
Good evening. Ruthie Stevenson, 69 Bain Street. I'm here to talk about Shadyside Park. As you know, Shadyside Park comes into the neighborhood. I'm talking about from Lindsay back to, as you go around the curve on Clinton River Drive, past Inches Street. As you know, on the park side, those bushes, young trees are encroaching forward. They're constantly going forward. And put in your mind how Canal Road is. You know, before you used to go down Canal, you could see down to the river and everything. Well, that's how Shadyside Park has gotten to be in the neighborhood. And I would like to get volunteers and somebody to cut those back, because it also creates a safety problem. As you know, in that area prior to, it was a Girl Scout, Boy Scout, something back there. It's a concrete enclave where they used to go and make smoke fires and everything else. Well, guess what? Last year, we put up with kids not living in the neighborhood. When I say young kids, they were going down there drinking and everything else, and we would call the police. Well, they started that about 2-3 weeks ago, and 12, 1 o'clock at night, you know, you hear them screaming and hollering and everything. We call the police, and at times it has also been an enclave for the homeless. So we need to cut those bushes back to create a more safer environment. So if we could get some volunteers together to do that, that would be a great thing. But like I say, it needs to be done. And I thought about doing it before the leaves got on the trees and stuff, you know, the bushes and everything, because it's constantly encroaching into the area where there's yards and stuff. And it's not viable or visible to the people, and it's a safety hazard as well. So if we could do something, and the city can do something, if we get volunteers to cut it, maybe the city can grind up the bushes or whatever, or get enough volunteers, somebody might donate something. But I appreciate any help you can have in that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jimmy Dixon at 94 Park. I'm here to thank you for the information at 260 North Broadway, where the city, our churches on the city of Mount Clemens and Clinton Township. So Clinton Township did come out and clean out our ditches. And I want to thank you for the information. Thank Mr. Vito for helping give me phone numbers. I just want to thank you for everything. And there's a whole lot of work to be done in the city of Mount Clemens, but I want to thank you for the work that has been done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Robert Heine, and I represent Volition Logistics, a Phoenix-based transportation logistics company. And we're looking at investing in the Mount Clemens area. And there is very little information about the economic development. So I'll be coming to the next few meetings to meet some of you. So if you have some time, come look me up. Thank you.
Can we get his information?
Yes, we have cards.
Can we give a card that we can?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Pass them out.
No?
Now would be great.
Oh, good. It's 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
We're looking at the downtown area. The average wage that the employees that we hire, I'm running out of cards.
Thank you. Thank you.
Starting off, it's usually like between 25 and 40. Middle type of experience, 40 to 60. Higher experience, between 60 and 80. And we looked at Detroit, but with the income tax and stuff like that, we kind of find it's more favorable up here. So if there's any help.
Just ignore that.
That's okay. If there's any help that you could do in helping us find a location, we're looking for immediate downtown area. We currently have 7 employees. Revenues $8 million last year. We expect to exceed $14 million this year. We have an office in Monterrey, Mexico, and we're doing a lot of the Mexico, Canada, U.S. freight. So
Have you talked to Brian Tingley, our Community Development Director?
nobody, no.
And
Have you talked to Eric? Okay,
talked to
good.
the DDA?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, very good. Well, we'd like to start, you know, those conversations and keep it rolling, and I just like, hey, I'll take a stab and come up here and say hello.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Anyone else?
Hi, Julie Frusciano, 686 Wellington Crescent.
I just wanted to say thank you 2 weeks ago for bringing in the fire department. I thought that was an awesome experience that I got to see Badge 100 get sworn in. I took pictures, I got to share it with some friends and family, and my kids just thought it was awesome to see it. I also wanted to mention that through Mount Clemens Schools, Seminole Academy is still collecting our gardening supplies, so if anybody has any old supplies, new supplies, shovels, anything laying around, we will gladly accept that for our gardening club that we're starting. We'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Administrative responses to issues or questions raised during previous meetings.
Thank you. I had a couple of items. The sidewalk work during road projects, I rehash everything that was discussed at the prior commission meeting, so I'm not going to go through that unless somebody asks me to. But we did go through processes at the last commission meeting when the question was asked. It was also referenced earlier in this public participation. Secondly, there was a road issue that was identified at the last commission meeting as well, where a resident inquired about a hole at Jones and Howard. The DPS had passed on information about this issue just prior to that May 2nd commission meeting, and the problem appears to be the result of an underlying sewer in that road area. The Utilities Department is investigating the sewer, including cleaning and televising the sewer. In the meanwhile, as a temporary step, the Department of Public Services has filled the hole with cold patch to make it safe or safer for the current situation. So we'll stay in touch on the resolution of what that issue is that caused the sinkhole there. Basically, it was not a pothole, it was a sinkhole because of that sewer problem underneath the road. And those are the two items that I had for this week.
Okay, thank you. Next item is approval of minutes of the May 2nd meeting.
I move to accept the minutes of the May 2nd, 2016 commission meeting as presented.
Support.
Roll call.
Crop?
Yes.
Menzer?
Yes.
Bunten?
Yes.
Campbell?
Yes.
Hill?
Yes. Okay. Moving along to agenda item number 9A, request for approval to enter into a professional services agreement between the City of Mount Clemens and Safe Built Michigan LLC for building official and trade inspection services. Is there a motion?
I move to approve entering into a professional services agreement between the City of Mount Clemens and Safe Built LLC for building, official, and trade inspection services beginning July 1st, 2016, and authorizing city staff to execute the agreement.
Support.
Mr. Brown?
Recently, the city let out a request for proposals to provide building official and code inspection services to the city. 3 proposals were submitted. The city manager and community development director reviewed the proposals and interviewed all 3 firms. The firms were Safe Built Michigan LLC, PMI Inspection Services, and Wade Trim. At this time, city administration is recommending that the city enter into a professional services agreement with Safe Built Incorporated. The agreement is attached and has been reviewed by the city attorney's office and Safe Built Incorporated. Either party may terminate the agreement upon 30 days written notice with or without cause, and that was submitted by Brian Tingley, our community development director.
Okay, is there any discussion, questions?
Yep.
Commissioner Menzer? Oh, okay. Commissioner Bunten?
All right, did the existing relationship with LSL Planning influence the decision to use them as our building officials and trade inspectors?
That was not one of the primary factors, but it definitely did not hurt the consideration.
We have experience with the company after all, and that's beneficial to us to know if we've, if we had a good experience or not had a good experience with them in our master plan update. The responsibilities that are contemplated under this agreement are obviously different than that. The players are different than that, obviously, but we did have some familiarity with the company because of that relationship, obviously, and that does help our consideration of their capabilities and their probability of interacting with us in a way that we like.
Okay, as a follow-up, what is the current cost to revenue ratio? Are we saving or losing money by changing systems, hiring an outside agency to come in?
The way I'd summarize that is we have individual contractors that we have a relationship with currently for those services. The total cost of our current arrangement is less than what's proposed under this proposal. And there's a variety of things that come into play in that. There are different ways we could bring the cost down in the long run. The initial agreement or the initial plan is for them to provide, for example, a building official on a 5 days per week basis. Currently, we only have that 3 days per week. Ultimately, if we decide to come back from that 5 days a week to 3 days a week, we expect that we could lower the costs on that part of the contract pretty substantially. But at first, we're looking to undertake having 5 days as opposed to the 3 days because we feel it's going to be beneficial to our efforts and to the results that we get in the department. And it's also going to allow, as you see in the memo that was attached with this proposal, or this proposed resolution here, or this proposed action tonight, that we expect that additional time in that building official capacity will free up some existing staff time to concentrate on long-range planning, economic development activities like that redevelopment-ready community certification we're pursuing, as opposed to dealing with day-to-day administration of the inspection processes. Some other things that come into play for the bid from LSL is they're bringing some additional value-added services to the proposal that was unique in terms of their plan not to charge us extra for those costs, better access by email and by phone to the people that would be providing the services, a review of our fee structure, a review of our records retention policies and things of that nature that are added into the process by LSL's proposal that aren't additional costs under the LSL proposal. The thing that I would point out, I guess in summary, the amount of the contract is basically been slightly reduced basically through some negotiations by Brian Tingley down to about $175,000. And if you notice in the memo, there is a expectation that the revenue is going to be above the expense on that process. And because of that, we're feeling comfortable that the increase attention that the process is going to have, the different resources that LSL is going to bring to the table, the added building official services for a couple of extra days, all of those things kind of create a cost-benefit analysis that makes us recommend the award of this contract to LSL.
So back to my original question, are we saving or losing money by this? I mean, are we in a situation where we're paying more money to bring in an agency to come in and do these things where our independent contractors are being paid less than? I'm concerned about the money being spent. That I've got to just honestly say, I'm concerned about the money being spent. So if this is going to cost us more in the long run to bring in a company to do this, then it doesn't make monetary sense.
The short answer is yes, it's going to cost more projected expense. The revenue is there to cover it regardless.
But if I'm sorry, go ahead.
But again, one of the things we're also doing is moving from a fixed rate annual cost for the inspector to an hourly rate to better gauge our true costs for providing the services. So when permanent activity is low, we could actually do better in the long run. But until we get into that situation, it's hard to tell.
The current projections are it's more expensive, but that's based on guesses as to what our level of activity will be. We're going to have the opportunity to reduce expenses at times when our activity is less as opposed to our current situation. So the full experience is yet to be determined, but I would say that the expectation is it will cost slightly more in providing this service in this fashion.
Okay, again, let me ask another question since I'm on this. I apologize for the number of questions.
No problem.
So if a building inspector is going to be paid, like say, $95 an hour, and that's a minimum, and he goes in and he does an inspection, and it takes him 20 minutes, and then he goes to another location and does an inspection, that takes him 20 minutes. Goes to another one, and that takes him 20 minutes. He's actually spent 1 hour. Is he getting paid for 1 hour, or is he getting paid for 3 times 1 hour?
That would be 1 hour, and we do have representatives from Safe Build here. If any of them want to speak to the matter.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Latuzik with Safe Build. With that, we currently have a 1 hour minimum built in the professional service agreement. So
Yes, I understand the 1 hour minimum, but is that 1 hour minimum for that entire hour, or are we talking about 1 hour minimum for that job, and then again for this job, and then again for that job?
It's not a per job basis, just 1 hour of work within the city. So if we could cover 4 inspections in that hour, you're going to get covered for 4 inspections. You're not going to get billed for 4 hours, so.
Good. Did want to know that.
Are you finished?
I'm not really, but.
Oh, well, go
you
ahead.
can pass me on if you want. Okay. Let's see. On professional service agreement number 5, will the city commission be able to vote on the renewal before it is automatically renewed, or on its anniversary? I guess I'm wondering if when that anniversary for renewal comes, it's just going to kick in automatically, or do we as a body get an opportunity to just determine if our services were profitable or not?
The way it's written, it would continue. And the city attorney can correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not real happy with that, so I just mentioned that.
It will automatically renew.
Unless. 30-day.
There is a provision that it can be terminated upon 30 days notice at any time.
Yeah. So then we, as a commission, would have to make that determination at least 30 days before the renewal date.
Or at any time.
Anytime,
Or at
actually.
any time.
You know, 2 months after they start, you can decide you want to get rid of them and give them a 30-day notice, and the contract's terminated.
Okay. What is our plan to review that at the 30 or before the 30-day notice is, so that the commission has a say on that, or what?
Well, we would look at it internally from community development's perspective. We'd be looking at it on an ongoing basis all throughout the year to see our level of happiness and satisfaction with the services in relation to what we're expending for those services. If it was a situation where we weren't satisfied with the cost benefit that I mentioned earlier, we'd have that 30 days to get out of the agreement, as the city attorney mentioned, and that's regardless of the renewal time. It could happen before the renewal, it could happen just after the renewal. If something comes up that makes us reevaluate our relationship, that's something we would have 30 days to opt out of the program.
Exhibit A, under list of services and fees, explain please the municipality shall provide permit technician administrative staff duties. What does that mean?
So that would be your front counter, the individual taking in the permits or handling all the day-to-day community development processes. So, and I believe you already have a staff in place for that, correct?
Correct.
So we're not adding anything to that?
No, it's just their terminology for our staff. That's just kind of a generic term for people assisting with the permitting process, permit technician. It's not a job classification at the city, so.
And lastly, out of my concerns, the municipality shall provide code enforcement staff. I forgot what that's under, probably under A.
Yeah, so we wouldn't be replacing your code enforcement staff, basically. So we wouldn't be doing code enforcement for you unless, this RFP did not outline that there would be any code enforcement being done. So we just kind of made that very clear in the.
It's the trade inspections, in other words.
Correct.
Not the code enforcement, the blight enforcement, if you will.
Yeah.
They're not providing those services under this contract.
That's all I have for now.
Commissioner Menzer?
So when I look at statistics from 2015 and thus far in 2016, all of these permitting areas, all of these inspection areas have decreased from 14 to 15, from 15 to 16 for the first 2 months. The only inspection area that actually increased was rental inspections, and I don't see any mention of the rental inspector in this agreement.
That's correct. Rental inspection services is not included.
Okay. So my other problem here is because the number of inspections has decreased, I'm having a real hard time reconciling decreased activity with increased cost. The other thing is I see no benefit here to the residents for nights and weekends. I work, a lot of these people work. When I had to have a new furnace, I had to take time off work and wait for that to be inspected. I have said before repeatedly that I think that residents should be considered, and we should have night and weekend inspections, and this agreement does not include that whatsoever. In addition, I believe that it's true, that it is right, that we need to free up the community development director, which would be you, Brian, to do more economic development. But I don't see this as hiring a subcontractor for permitting inspections that have decreased as an answer to that. That's where I'm at.
Anybody else? I do have a comment myself. It seems to me that there's a potential benefit for this in that they would only be paid when they do a job. It's an hourly pay rather than our previous agreement is we've been paying these inspectors whether they're inspecting or not. They get an annual salary. You know, this way they only get paid for the work that they do, and I see that as a potential benefit.
No, I agree, and that's one of the reasons why we wanted to make the switch. For when permit activity is low, the expense is going to match that.
Go ahead.
If there have been issues with the current system, what have we done to try to modify? I mean, are there issues with certain contractors, it seems as though we are jumping from, we changed the system, and now we're changing the system again, but it sounds to me like there are issues with specific people. And have we, stopped working with a person and started working with a different contractor? I mean, it seems as though that is more of an issue than changing the entire system again. What have we done to fix what we have?
Well, I wouldn't say it's an issue with any inspectors.
Okay.
Not at all. It's just a different model, a different way of looking at it, and a different model going to the hourly rate, and having the one company provide those services as opposed to hiring different independent contractors. It's not an issue with any one person.
Okay.
Not on my end.
Okay.
Did we approach our current contractors to ask them if they wanted to go to an hourly basis instead of paying them on an annual basis?
We have not.
Okay.
Okay, are you ready to vote? Okay, roll call.
Menser.
No.
Bunten.
No?
Campbell.
No.
Hill.
I'm going to vote yes.
Crop.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay, next item 9B, request for approval to enter into a professional services agreement between the City of Mount Clemens and Davis Kirksey Associates Incorporated for grant writing assistance.
So move.
Support.
Okay.
Oh, not too early? I'm sorry.
No, I was saying you have to read that.
I have to read that?
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's your turn now to read. Mr. Brown?
Get to it, well.
Oh.
All right.
Oh, I
Move to
see.
approve entering into a professional service agreement between the City of Mount Clemens and Davis Kirksey Associates, Inc. for grant writing assistance and to authorize the appropriate city officials to sign the same.
So the city, we have support.
Okay, now.
The City and Downtown Development Authority entered into a memorandum of understanding in 2015 to jointly fund a citywide economic development program. One part of this program includes a focus on grant writing to facilitate projects within the downtown as well as citywide. City administration is recommending contracting with Davis Kirksey Associates for a one-year term at the cost of $1,750 per month. Either party may terminate the agreement upon 30 days written notice with or without cause. The agreement has been reviewed by Davis Kirksey Associates and the City Attorney's Office, and that's also submitted by Brian Tingley, Community Development Director.
Questions, discussion? Commissioner Menzer?
I'm going to make a few comments, and then I'm going to make an alternate motion here. Number one, I don't see the memo of understanding between the city and the DDA. So it makes it impossible for me to vote for this. Number two, I don't see anything in this contract for what the deliverables are. I don't see anything for what the DDA's part is. I don't see an agreement in the contract that the grant writer will work on grants outside the DDA boundaries. There's nothing in here on who the grant writer reports directly to. I want to understand that they're going to work for all city departments. We have been very lucky in Jeff Wood bringing grants in for trees, for landscaping, for road work, for curbs, et cetera. The fire department has been very successful in writing grants for, they wrote a grant themselves to get the ladder truck. They wrote a grant to get the self-contained breathing apparatus. There are, and maybe the utilities department needs some assistance to get grants that will help with infrastructure needs. I'm thinking of things like, fire equipment, seawalls, infrastructure, et cetera. And I also don't see anything in here that says if a federal grant comes out for seawalls, that it says specifically in the contract that the grant writer will be able to work with other communities. If there's one grant for a seawall, and she's helping us write that grant, but she's also helping New Baltimore write that grant, and she's also helping the city of Utica write that grant for their frontage, I got kind of a problem with this. So I would like to make an alternate motion. I would like to get this information, see this memo of understanding, understand more of the DDA's roles and the boundaries of this and what the deliverables are, and then bring that back to the table.
Commissioner Button?
Since the DDA is here, could they just address their portion of this?
Okay, I actually was confused myself when I read this because I thought that one of the reasons why we were increasing the money that the DDA was getting this year is so that they could hire a grant writer. And so then when I see that the city is going to hire a grant writer, I'm confused.
I could provide some clarity on that. The fact of the matter is we've got the staffing to do the legal review of the document. We have the staffing to make the payments for the responsibilities underneath the document. We have a variety of resources that the DDA doesn't have in terms of there is no staff other than an events coordinator for the DDA. So the expectation pursuant to the MOU, and that MOU is something that was provided previously. We can provide a copy of that easily. But that MOU basically said that the DDA would share in the costs of a city-prescribed economic development program, so with feedback from the DDA. And the DDA has provided a lot of feedback in the two different directions we're looking to go on this potential economic development program. The grant writer was something that the DDA was very much interested in and had a lot of involvement in determining our course of action on this, and they would be covering half the costs underneath the contract pursuant to that, up to $20,000, I should say, underneath that MOU document. But I can defer to Mr. Saff from the DDA for additional information. I just wanted to provide that to begin with.
Good evening, Stephen Saff Jr., 68 Clinton Street, representing the DDA at this point. First of all, the contract or the agreement has been in existence and was executed and approved by this board, so you should have that in your historic records.
That was for economic development?
The economic development.
This one is for grant writer.
Well, this encompasses an economic development plan. You're dealing with a volunteer board who is attempting to, if anything, grasp at individual concepts that would lead to economic development. If you can sit here and provide for me a blueprint what defines economic development for me, I'll be happy to to comment on that. But economic development encompasses a wide variety and a wide range of areas that at the end of the day need to be focused on for deliverables. Now, I provided to this commission a list of approximately a dozen different items that were developed from conversations, dialogue that encompass not just the DDA district, but outside of the boundaries. And I made it very clear at the time that I developed that list that it was a fluid list, that we were looking for interaction from others, from other departments, from other people within the city to give us other things to put on a list. We've already met collectively as a group to talk about how to flesh these lists out. We've got an individual here who is going to be working on a retainer basis. So it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we give this individual the direction and the information required to bring us these deliverables. I'm not going to sit and wait for someone to say to me, this is what I'm going to do for you, because if that's the case, we're, I think, going to be in a backseat position. We have to be proactive here, and we've got an opportunity to work with someone that can come in and sit down with Jeff Wood and say, okay, you've been looking at these grants, how do we widen that scope? We look at the fire department you mentioned, how do we widen the scope? Here's an individual that has experience not only with state grants, local grants, but federal grants. We undertake this for a year, we see how it looks. But we're at a point where I don't want to say frustrated, but we need to work on these deliverables. And the first thing that we're looking at is the farmers market shed. We've talked in length and we've spent a lot of time talking about St. Joe's. Mr. Tingley wants to work with us as far as talking about the riverfront and what we're talking about the connectivity as far as like pocket park concept that connects from Shadyside to the downtown to MacArthur Park, trying to expand and develop that area next to the Y. We've got, again, a list that's a document that has been, I think, well thought out. And the intent is to take those items and one by one and hammer out narratives that we get under the nose of the grant writer and then have this person accountable. And if they come back to us and they say, hey, this is a great idea, but we can't do this, or there's not a grant available for this, well, then we go on to the next one. But we've got to be taking the proactive stance here to try to get some of this moving. And I'm afraid that if the dialogue continues about we want to create something or try to get a roadmap, that the road's going to be behind us and not in front of us.
Mr. Commissioner Bunton.
Can you cover the cost factor, who's paying what? That seems to be an issue, so just get it out.
At the end of the day, it's all city money. I mean, but as far as a budgetary standpoint, we made a commitment at the beginning of this current budget cycle to put 20 grand in an economic development program. So here's a little close to that 20 grand that we would be paying for this for the course of the year. The DDA has put $90,000 in a match grant for the current TAP program. I was asked to write another letter again in support for another TAP grant. I think that you've got to be hopefully comfortable in knowing that the monies that are being captured by Tifa and given to the DDA are not being used, or not being wasted, but are being used for targeted improvements and targeted issues for the downtown. We're paying for the construction of the new electronic programmable sign that'll be installed on the corner that was approved recently by this body. These are hard investments that we're making back in the community. I anticipate what will happen is we'll come back and have a successful grant that we'll have to put, again, match money in at some capacity to help make the grant become a reality. So I don't know if that answers your question, but again, the DDA is committed to making these improvements and taking these steps for the downtown and for the community as a whole. And the good thing about this type of a cooperative effort with the city as a whole is it allows us to work with someone that then can look outside of the footprint that is defined by the TIFA boundary or the DDA boundary. So again, I refer to the St. Joe's property on North Avenue.
Mr. Murray?
I'd just remind the commission that when the initial discussion came about relative to the DEA contributing money towards economic development, it was this body who insisted that it controlled the money. There was a discussion in the original proposal where the DDA was going to have more of a say, and this body had the memorandum of understanding drafted in a fashion that the DDA was kicking in the 20 grand and the city was going to run the way it was spent. So the idea now that somehow the DDA should be entering into the contract, I don't think that conflicts with what our original agreement and the memorandum of understanding says.
The original memorandum of understanding and agreement was for a hired position of economic developer.
I'm sorry, no.
We interviewed positions for economic developer, and we attempted to hire one who turned the position down.
That's fine. That's your decision now, whether or not you think that falls within the purview of what was agreed upon. But the agreement was 20 grand for economic development purposes. Now the administration is telling you this is an economic development purpose. Whether you agree or not is up to you.
We did not enter an agreement that specifically addressed a personnel position or an individual. We entered into agreement, and I apologize, I don't have it here, and obviously from a historic standpoint it's not available to you at this point either, but the City Commission approved an agreement for an economic development program. This was a specific amendment that was agreed upon by all parties from the standpoint that the DDA did not want to be involved with an employment position or the a personnel issue. So it was left to a broader concept of about a development program, correct, Mr. Tingley? I had to put you in the spot, but
Yeah,
wasn't
that's
that
totally correct. I can remember there was discussion at the DDA. Initially, it was going to be a hiring of a position. And the DDA's insistence was that it be referred to as an economic development program because they didn't want any part of having any kind of misunderstanding that there was an additional employee of the DDA involved. The initial plan from both the city and DDA perspective was to proceed with a hiring. We went through a hiring process. We identified an overwhelmingly preferred candidate, and we were unable to successfully negotiate a salary with that individual. Once that happened, the DDA and the city reevaluated and decided not to go in the hiring direction because of the fact that that was a decision that was made at the time, and the flexibility was there because it was an economic development program, not a position. It wasn't originally intended to be a hiring and was going to be written that way, but the MOU did get written in a way that it was an economic development program. And that allows the additional flexibility that brings us here today to not proceed with a hiring, but to proceed with another approach to stimulating economic development in the city of Mount Clemens.
Commissioner Hill, to address your question too about the upcoming budget and the percentage of holdback that the city has kept from the TIFA funds that have gone from 66% to 50%. Now we're hoping to look at a split of 65% back to the DDA and the balance held by the city. The intent was not to use that additional legitimate funding for the TIFA back to the DDA. The intent was there is that a hope for acknowledgement by this body that the monies that are being used by the DDA are being used for these type of projects. And we enter into these agreements in good faith and look forward to cooperating with the city. But at the end of the day, when Linda's got to start making columns and taking money from A to B, we need to be able to step up to the table. And again, I made reference a few moments ago, we're again been asked to support a TAP grant application that Mr. Wood is doing that hopefully will occur in the next cycle with MDOT. And again, I'm confident they'll come back to us and ask for matching funds.
Okay, well, I I must have misunderstood, because I thought that you were going to use that additional money to hire a grant writer.
I'm sorry.
So, I mean, I'm not against the DDA, and I'm not against a grant writer. I think having a grant writer is a good idea. I don't know. To me, it's not clear who's responsible for what.
The city, at the end of the day, is responsible. It's a city agreement and a city contract, but it's the responsibility of those that hope to see the benefit to be in front of this individual and to create expectations. And this goes back to the nature of the wish list that I created, that I shared with everybody. You know, here's what we're looking at from a out of the box, first swing at this thing. And I encourage, if any of you want to contribute as far as adding an item that you think that may be something that we could also approach this individual on, if you have any ideas how to flesh out these individual items that were on the list. Again, this is a city contract, but we're looking to engage cooperatively for the benefit of both the DDA district and the community as a whole.
Well, I multiplied $1,750 times 12 and got $21,000, so that's how much it's going to cost.
If you're looking at the accounting entry, we budgeted the $20,000 for this expiring budget term, and the money obviously has not been spent. So we're going to be taking funding. Linda will have to make an adjustment that takes the money that was budgeted as we went through this process. As Mr. Brown just referred, we did go through an interview process with partnering with the city for a specific economic development personnel, and the candidate didn't work out. There was a second plan that we looked at before we ended up in this third concept as far as a level of agreement. But again, if we take the $1,750 out of the 16-17 budget, that's not skin off my nose.
So I found that memo of understanding. I keep everything. And the memo of understanding in the first paragraph under where the boilerplate is, this agreement signed this day, it says, whereas the city is committed to enhancing economic development efforts in the city by implementing an economic development program in its community development department, and this program shall include providing support and assistance to the DDA in its activities, programs, and marketing efforts directed toward the revitalization of the downtown area and adjacent properties within the DDA's district boundaries. I don't think I need to read the whole thing. This doesn't answer a couple of my questions still. First of all, this grant writer is the top of her field, and I acknowledge that. But I'm stuck on making sure that this grant writer is available for work outside the DDA boundaries, because that's not addressed in here specifically, okay? And
nor is she restricted within the boundary. And again, it's a contract that you're entering in with the city. The DDA, I don't believe, is a party of this contract. Am I correct?
Right.
The DDA,
no, you signed
the
it.
DDA.
You signed it.
No. I'm talking about. Are you talking about the contract between the city and the DDA for the 20 grand?
This contract that we're discussing tonight.
Yeah.
Is between the city and Davis Kursky Associates, Inc.
The DDA is not part of that contract.
It has no reference to the DDA.
Well, it
to the
is
DDA
confusing the way
boundaries
it's
or
stated
anything
here.
else.
Okay.
Well, they're going to jointly fund it.
All right.
That was stated in the cover, so.
Yeah.
I don't know how to help you get your head around the fact that
They're providing $20,000.
we're putting $20,000 towards an effort, and you're making the decision. We're asking you and supporting a decision here today that we think is going to have a benefit not only for the DDA, but for the city as a whole. And again, you're hiring somebody that you're paying a flat rate, whether she does anything or not. It's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're providing as much information, direction, and push to get these things accomplished. So I don't know how to answer any of the questions.
Well, it does say here that either party may terminate the agreement upon 30 days written notice, so.
And those parties, again,
if
are
she's not performing the way we want her to, we can terminate it.
And who will be monitoring that, Brian?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it'll be a collaboration between, you know, myself, city manager, the DDA board,
et cetera.
I just want to push things and give this person ideas and give this person content. As an example, we've spent time creating a narrative in cooperation with the group from the Mount Clemens Farmers Market about who they service, how long they've done this, what their numbers are, their WIC program, their senior WIC program. All this information is stuff that it's got to be critical when someone is filling out a grant. I don't want this woman to be spending her time putting together these details when we have it literally at our fingertips. So again, these are the type of things that we've got to collectively put together and push in front of this person to equip her to go out and look for these grants. So it gets back to this list, which becomes very critical. It's a living document. What are we doing to look at our wants and our needs? Get her in front of Jeff, get her in front of the fire department, and we go from there. And again, this is not it's a one-year agreement, and there's an out if the city, again, the city is if they're not satisfied, if you're not satisfied.
Call for vote.
Before we vote, I do want to clarify one thing, too. The contract that is attached to the agenda here speaks to a $1,750 flat rate and a total of $21,000. The contractor had requested an additional upfront payment of $1,750, which would make the agreement cost $22,750. We did have some give and take on that. It should have been brought forward with that $1,750 reflected at the front. It was not. So that would be something to consider. You're going to do it under which terms, the $21,000 or the $22,750? And if it's the $22,750, it would include an upfront retainer payment of $1,750 plus 12 one-month payments of $1,750. That was her proposal, or the company's proposal. So I want to make that clear, which way do you want to go on that compensation? If it gets approved. I don't know if it's going to get approved, obviously. But that was her proposal, was the $1,750 upfront plus 12 payments of $1,750. Total cost $22,750.
Got it.
I guess I didn't read the contract well enough. I didn't notice, I didn't
Well, you
see
wouldn't have
that.
noticed it because it wasn't referenced. It should have been referenced in there. The proposal that she made was that. So we're either going to make that correction, or you're going to approve it at the $22,750, which with the details that I just mentioned, or you're going to approve it at the $21,000.
So keeping in mind that these are federal and/or state monies, I would like to request that at a minimum, this success of the grant writer be brought up during quarterly reports. I don't want to have to remember every month, hey, what are we doing? So I would like that included in the quarterly reports. And if you can do that, then I can probably support this.
She's agreed to meet with us every 60 days. So from the standpoint of and you volunteered to participate in that committee, Commissioner Menser, as we continue, again, I'm repeating myself, to flesh out these lists and try to come up with other creative ideas. Again, she's going to sit down with us or be in communication with us at least once every 60 days to report back and get our input and receive her feedback.
Sure, and then those reports need to be made available to the rest of the commission who's not on that committee.
Yes. Okay, are we ready to vote?
And under which financial arrangement?
I mean, I would assume
Contract as written.
She made the proposal for the additional $1,750. That was her expectation. And I think it was a version control problem. It was being submitted through community development. I submitted a separate document, and the wrong one got attached to the agenda.
Oh, that's right.
So why wouldn't we approve the one that, I mean, if there's a chance.
We want to hire her, so let's just do what's
That's right.
necessary to hire her.
All right, so to clarify then, we'll add the $1,750 up front. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Total cost $22,750.
Okay, roll call.
Bunton.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Crop.
Yes.
Menser.
Yes. Okay, you can breathe now, Steve.
Go ahead.
Okay, moving along. Item 9C, request approval of a proposal to provide HR consulting services.
Move
there
to
a
approve
motion?
an agreement with Quad West Associates LLC to provide strategic human resource leadership consulting services to the city with a cost not to exceed $11,000 over a 22-week period.
Is there support? Second?
Support, so we can discuss.
Okay.
All right, so Human Resources function has been operating without a separate HR director since the prior incumbent's retirement in 2014. During the 2015-16 budget process, the decision was made to fund the HR director position. In October of 2015, city manager brought a candidate forward for the position, but was unsuccessful in getting commission approval of the appointment on 2 occasions. The position has remained vacant since that time. The HR function will be experiencing an additional staff impact from July to October of 2016. This creates another opportunity to revisit the HR function, both for the immediate concern and perhaps to gain additional information on the function so we can formulate a new plan for the long run. We intend to use a temporary employee to carry on during the staff shortage for approximately 5 weeks before and 4 weeks after that period, for a total of up to 22 weeks. That's a separate item. That's something that can be handled by me administratively. We do hire temporary employees as needed to fill in when there are vacancies, or temporary or otherwise. In addition to the temporary employee, I propose we contract with an HR consulting firm to provide strategic leadership consulting services in our HR function. These services would include a review of the HR activities policies of the city and the creation of a suggested plan to establish priorities and identify possible timeline for action by the city. These services would be billed for a limited number of hours per week. The attached agreement has more detail on the arrangement. I anticipate this engagement would also average about 4 hours per week also over that 22-week period. Again, 5 weeks before the 3-month period of shortage, and then about 4 weeks afterwards. I would propose a not-to-exceed dollar amount of $11,000 for these services, or roughly $500 per week. The recommended consulting firm can also provide an HR generalist caliber employee at a competitive price, and that combination would maximize the benefit from and minimize the cost of the consulting services. So in other words, we can get a temporary employee from any one of a number of sources. I would propose that if this consulting agreement is approved by the mayor and commission, that I would also ask them to provide the generalist position underneath that temporary employee, and that would maximize the amount of cooperation and collaboration and connection between those two functions, and allow us to perhaps keep down the consulting services billing, which will be much higher than the HR generalist billing. So that's the general idea of what we're proposing, and that was brought forward by myself as city manager.
Questions? Discussion?
Go ahead.
All right, excuse me. I guess my question is, why do we need a HR consultant to come in and do, I mean, what has been drastically wrong with the program up to now? And why do we need to spend $11,000 to have somebody review what we have going on? I think if we did it in-house, I don't know, first of all, let me ask, have we attempted to do this in-house, sit down with our local people and go over our procedures and determine whether there are areas of improvement or not? And then after that, I want to know, why would we spend that kind of money to have somebody come in and evaluate our process, but they don't know anything about our process? They come from whatever county, whatever place, and they come in and sit down and go over our stuff as if we're somebody else. They have to know us in order to be able to determine whether our procedures are accurate or not. And I guess we've existed for quite a while and did not have a problem with any of our payroll things. We had one little snafu recently, but prior to that, we haven't had any problem with any of this. So I guess my question is, why?
One word I would use would be expertise, and
our people are not expertise yet?
Divergent and varied expertise in the HR field in a variety of different venues. It's been pretty well acknowledged internally, as well as in other operations. I've had conversations with other municipal operations, and the HR world is very complex. It changes on a regular basis, and it's kind of set up for a failure almost for the employer. The person that I spoke to basically made a comment that you've never heard of anything called the Employer Rights Act. It's always the Employee Rights Act and things of that nature. So there are different changes to regulations that come about. There are things that we could potentially be not fully up to speed on just by virtue of not having the industry expertise that this organization would have. They'd have a couple different people that could be brought into this that have been working in the HR function for multiple decades apiece. So their knowledge of the field would allow us to gain the benefit of that experience. They'd be looking at different regulatory areas potentially where we could have issues. For one example that we have, our payroll process that you just mentioned is I'm going to put it charitably and just say it's unique, the way that we process payroll. And never seen it before in another organization. It was a decision that was made well in the past to go to that way of processing payroll. It creates record-keeping problems for us. It creates reconciliation problems. It creates
Mr. Brown, can I
confusion
interrupt you?
issues.
Since you already know this issue,
related to this.
why don't we fix the issue?
Because it's not easily accomplished.
But they won't fix the issue. They'll recommend to you to fix the issue.
Correct. They would recommend potentially different ways to
and then
fix
you would
it.
have to fix the issue, right? I mean, why?
Correct.
So why don't we do that? You already know.
I just said,
you just gave
looking
expertise.
to gather expertise from somebody else that might have a different perspective.
But you
as to
know
how
this
to do
issue,
that.
so fix it. I don't understand.
If it was as simple as that, I can assure you I would do that. But we have a situation where
But they're
it would
not going to
involve, and I've had some conversations with individual people about this, if we change that MO, there's going to be a period of time where there would be pay periods or paid days that would be involved, and it would require getting something that would would allow us to basically put a proposal across that would be less impactful on employees. And that's what I would be looking for from somebody with this kind of expertise.
I don't doubt.
That's just one example.
I don't doubt the complexity of that issue. I'm sure it's very complex, especially you've gone through it and mentioned all of the ins and outs. But the fact of the matter is they're not going to solve your problems. They're going to tell you your problems and then tell you to fix them.
Which you already know.
They're going to make recommendations for how to fix those problems.
We haven't been fixing problems.
Commissioner
I
Button?
don't understand that as an argument for not doing it, but okay.
You know.
First thing I want to, if I'm not mistaken, Sarah has gone to various training sessions, et cetera, to be updated on our advance or changes in the process. So what are they going to come and tell her more than she did? She went to the same sessions they went to. So where's the lack of experience? Where's the lack of input? I just don't see that. And then on top of that, I understand that we're going to end up paying somebody, as Commissioner Kropp said, to come in and tell us that they think there's something wrong. Well, our system has worked for a mighty long time, and whether it's unique or not, okay, you haven't seen it somewhere else, but we have it working here. It's been working here, so why don't we let it work?
Commissioner Menzer?
I believe it was sometime in late 2013 that Barb Hergenroder retired. Between 2013 and when City Manager Brown was hired in 2015, Sarah Price handled the HR functions on her own and did a very fine job. The recent payroll snafu that Commissioner Button mentioned was not a function of the Human Resource Department. It was not a cause or error of the Human Resource Department. It was accounting staff. That human resource function has been working well, other than with one employee issue who has,
I'd encourage you to be cautious on that.
let's just say separate
We don't need
functions going on. So as far as I'm concerned, it sends a shocking message to our employees who have been loyal and diligent and hardworking for a very long period, that we want to replace them and have someone actually come in and review human resource functions without the human resource assistant there. I am very disappointed in this, and in addition, I am a staunch union supporter, and there is no way that I am going to sit back and say, you know, let's bring in some people that don't understand that and don't subscribe to that. So I think my vote will be very clear.
If I can respond to some of that, please.
Okay.
First off, there's no union position involved here. Even if we had an HR director position filled, it's not a union position, number one. Number two, we're not bringing in somebody to fill an HR director position. We're bringing in a consultant to make recommendations on the HR function. So we're not bringing in anybody to replace anybody. We're bringing in somebody, if this is approved, to provide analysis, review, and expertise to help us do a better job in a function that I can assure you there are issues with regulations. There are issues that have occurred in the function over the years, and I'm not going to get into specifics, but there are issues that have come up over the years, and that is not unique to the city of Mount Clemens. That's common in a variety of municipal operations, even that are more well-staffed than we are. There are still issues that crop up with missing full compliance with a regulation, and those lack of compliance with the regulation can have some serious impacts for the organization and for the government. And the purpose of bringing somebody in, the reason I'm making this recommendation, is I think some of those exposures exist in the human resource function, and I think that bringing in somebody at a modest investment of $11,000 is a worthwhile investment to take a look at things and to catch things that are out there that we are not either fully compliant with or compliant in any way with. And the internal expertise that we have, this is no knock on the internal expertise that we have, the internal expertise that we have is limited to my experience in the HR field, other people's experience in the HR field that aren't directly responsible in the HR field, and a person that has done a great job for us in the role that she's had. But even in that role, we're talking about measuring that experience in the neighborhood of a couple decades or a couple decades or less. When you have an opportunity to bring a consulting company in that has people that have been in the field for 25, 35 years, that's a level of expertise that this organization doesn't have. And this organization could benefit from bringing somebody in for that cost of about $10,000 or $11,000 and identifying areas that we can make sure that we get on the right side of things. We look at ways to improve the way we do things. I'm not saying that the way that things are done in Mount Clemens is wrong. There are different ways to do things, and if there's a better way to do things that somebody can point out to us, or a potentially better way for them to point out to us that we can evaluate vis-a-vis the way that we do business, that's what the purpose of this is. It's not intended to insult anybody on staff. It's not intended to replace anybody. It does neither of those things, in my estimation. So that's why the recommendation is brought before you, because I think we could benefit from having some outside consulting services on a very limited basis for up to $11,000, roughly 4 to 5 hours per week, for a limited duration of 22 weeks. And that's the simple prospect that's before you. If you're not in favor of it, that's fine. If you're in favor of it, that's fine.
Commissioner Bunton, you.
When you're talking about that, it's 11,000 here, 5,000 here, whatever thousand there. You know what? We're asking these people to give to increase their millage to, actually I think it's 24.7 or something like that. That's a whale of a lot of money, and if we don't have to spend anything for something, let's not spend it just because. We have a competent person who's been doing two people's job for a number of years. She has attended various sessions that upgrade her and train herself in making sure she's caught up with everything that's going on. I see no reason to bring in somebody else, spend $11,000 and come up with the same result that we already have. You know, we went through that with the millage in the first place, okay? We said we'd done everything that we could possibly do to make things right in the city. And then we brought in an agency to come in, and when they got finished with it, they said, you've plucked all the low-hanging fruit. There's nothing else you can do except increase your millage. We knew that when we started. We paid, well, we didn't have to pay them, but we ended up having them verify what we have. So I'm just not interested in well, I'll leave it to my vote, but I don't, it's not to the city's best interest to spend any money they don't have to.
I guess I just want to add my 2 cents and say that, you know, everything that we're doing may not be perfect, but I don't think it should take somebody 22 weeks to make recommendations for how we could change. So I think the duration is too long. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Vote.
Campbell.
No.
Hill.
No.
Crop.
No.
Menser.
No.
Bunton.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 9D, consideration of the request by the Mount Clemens Housing Commission to be a separate and independent employer.
I move to approve the request from the Mount Clemens Housing Commission to be a separate and independent employer and to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the attached severance agreement.
Support.
City Commission previously held a work session on January 19th, 2016 to discuss the separation of the Mount Clemens Housing Commission as an independent employer. A variety of issues and questions were discussed at that time, and since that time, the proposed separation date has been correspondingly shifted back a few times. A resolution to the last remaining point of discussion involving personnel has been reached. Information from the January work session was provided under separate cover to the mayor and commission. Therefore, the attached severance agreement is provided for review and consideration of approval, and that's submitted by myself as city manager.
Okay, questions, discussion? Commissioner Campbell.
What happens to the employees that are working there right now?
The current agreement, which was part of the negotiations that took place between the Mount Clemens Housing Commission and the city of Mount Clemens, we were concerned about that. That was the overriding concern that we had about a potential separation and the impact that it would have on employees. There is the potential that there would be some retirements that are being discussed among different people that are employed by the city. The timing of those would be completed if they're going to happen by September. So we asked for the current agreement to read a separation date of July 1st of 2016. However, with the agreement that existing employees would not be affected before September 30th of 2016, that would allow those potential retirements to take place. What the potential employee impact is, we have employees that are city employees that work for the Mount Clemens Housing Commission in a variety of capacities. If they make the decision, if the decision is made to allow them to separate and become an independent employer, those employees may or may not continue employment with the Mount Clemens Housing Commission. If they don't, they have the right to come back to the city. They would bump existing employees that have lesser experience potentially to lay off. So the purpose of that additional period of time for current employees of the city to September 30th is to allow the flexibility of having some additional retirements take place to mitigate that impact and to make it unnecessary potentially to lay off some folks. So that's the reason for that. There are existing vacancies that would be handled differently. It would be temporary employees until the separation took place, and then after that, the Housing Commission could do as they will with those two vacancies that are existing currently.
There are 4 employees from the city that are employed at the Housing Commission at the present time. It's information from Mr. Woods, who's in charge of that department, that there will be a like number of retirements by September 1, meaning that those 4 employees, if they do not seek employment with the Housing Commission and they come back, it will not result in any loss of jobs to any city employees, because there's going to be that many openings by the end of September. That's what
potentially
we're told by Mr. Woods. If there are not that many retirements, then obviously they would come back. If they've got seniority, they would bump a lesser senior employee.
I have a question for Mr. Murray. We really have no leg to stand on to deny them separation, right? I mean, there are court cases that say...
You can deny them, but I presume they'd take us to court.
Right.
They probably went in court.
Okay.
The statute's pretty clear, and the Supreme Court decision regarding that statute abundantly clear.
And why are we voting on it to begin with? If they can
Well,
do-
because we didn't want to do it willy-nilly. We've been dealing with this for over 10 years. And to be fair, the Housing Commission on a number of occasions in the past decade has taken the position they didn't want to separate, that they wanted to be co-employers. And we've gone through co-employment agreements, we've gone through separation agreements, and we want to do this in a uniform fashion. And that's why we have a separation agreement before you. So it spells those items out, particularly what you just talked about. That's why the dates have changed. They were originally July 1. we found out about the employees, the retirement possibilities, et cetera. That's why the provision in this agreement is that no action would be taken until the end of September on those employees. So that's the reason why you have an agreement in front of you.
Anything else? Ready to vote? Roll call?
Hill.
Yes.
Crop.
Yes.
Menzer.
Reluctantly, I'm going to vote yes. I believe that it should be separate. I really believe that, but I'm very unhappy with the clause on employee layoffs. So I'll vote yes.
Yes.
Campbell.
No.
Motion passes.
Okay. Agenda item 9E, request approval of a license agreement for county requested drop-off lane on South Main Street.
Approve a license agreement between the City of Mount Clemens and Macomb County regarding a drop-off lane on South Main Street near the County Administration Building.
Support.
So the Macomb County campus project in the city included a site plan for the new Macomb County Administration Building's parking structure. The site plan was reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission. Subsequent to Planning Commission approval, an amendment was submitted by the county to Community Development that provided for a drop-off lane to be created, and I'm going to strike out the word grassy, in the area between the sidewalk and the street on South Main Street, between the entrance to the parking structure and the intersection with Cass. The purpose is to facilitate deliveries and other short-term visits to the administration building by users such as armored truck companies and overnight delivery companies. Currently, these vehicles pull up on the sidewalk, which creates a variety of public safety concerns. The amendment adding the drop-off lane was approved during our engineering review. It was determined that the city concerns related to this drop-off lane, including responsibility for snow and ice removal, maintenance, repairs, and replacement, would best be addressed by the way of a legal agreement. The attached license agreement was negotiated between the county and the city and includes an Exhibit A that defines the drop-off lane. The county has signed the agreement, as you will see on the attached document, and that's brought forward by myself as city manager.
Okay. Questions, discussion?
Roll call.
Well, I do have a concern myself. That's on Main Street, and I have a concern, there's a lot of traffic congestion in that area, and I am wondering how this drop-off thing.
That's why you look at paragraph 10, it says we can revoke this license at any time by giving them 680 days notice. Their drawing is, it's not a lane, it's just a pull-in for FedEx, et cetera.
But
and
then they have to pull out.
Well, it's 200 feet south of Cass and Main Street.
I don't know, there are a
It's
lot
not
of...
at the corner, is all I'm saying. It's further south than the corner.
Mayor Pro Tem Hill, you had good instincts on that because we were concerned about that as well. Jeff Wood brought up the concern about what if there are issues related to that, and that's why we have the language in there that allows us to require that it be removed within a 180-day period if there's a reason like that that comes up. We're hopeful that won't be an issue, but it's potentially an issue. It is something that was considered during the process.
Okay, ready to vote?
And I guess to add to that, we can, as he said, revoke that at any time, and if it is a problem. I have the same concern, even if we have this rapid bus transportation system coming through. How is that going to impact that? Because it's going to be a very narrow corridor to begin with, and then we may need to take some of that anyway to do the bus thing. So depending on how that plan lays out, but I guess we can consider it as not a permanent, but a temporary thing.
Okay, roll call.
Crop.
Yes.
Menzer.
Yes.
Bunten.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Hill.
Reluctantly, yes.
Is that
It's catching tonight.
A lot of that, huh?
Okay, agenda item 9F. Adoption of 2016-2017 budget appropriations resolution and millage rates.
Motion to adopt the millage rate request for the 2016 property taxes and to adopt the general budget appropriations resolution for the 2016-17 fiscal year.
Support.
Public hearing was held on May 2nd, 2016 for the City of Mount Clemens 2016-2017 fiscal year budget and property tax millage rates. The millage rates for the City of Mount Clemens are as follows: General Fund 20 mills, Dial-A-Ride .9137 mills, Pension Fund .9137 mills, Sanitation Fund .30 mills, total citywide 22.1274. These total citywide millages will be levied at 22.1274 mills, and the Downtown Development Authority District millage will be leveled at 1.6132 mills. The proposed budget was prepared using the maximum allowable millage under the Headley Amendment, and that was brought forward by our Finance Director Treasurer, Linda Kunith.
Any discussion? Commissioner Bunton?
Well, first off, I'd like to apologize. I think I said earlier that it was 24 mills, but it's actually only 23.74 when you add the 1.6132 mills for DDA. But now I guess my question is, a lady last meeting asked if this is going to be more than it was this year, and I guess I'd like to redress that question and ask, is it going to be more or is it the same as last year?
Millage rates are proposed as the same as for fiscal year 2016. No changes.
Okay, just wanted to make that perfectly clear, so we're paying that much. Thank you.
Right.
Okay, ready to vote? Or Commissioner Menzer?
So I wish that we had separated these two things, because the mills were voted on by the public, and as far as I'm concerned, that's a done issue. The budget itself, the budget appropriations itself, for me, is a different thing. According to a document that we received from FVOP from July of, and it outlines July of 15 to December of 15. We got that in February. I counted, and there were 204, in 2014, there were 21 water main breaks. In 2015, up until May 2nd, there were 25 water main breaks. We talk all the time about the streets. We talk about, you know, Grand, South, Smith, Jones, Howard, Euclid, Crest, Miller, Clemens. These streets are very, very bad. These are residential local streets. So, and you look at the city manager's comments, and he'll talk about them later tonight. Technically, we need $37 million for streets. So I look at this budget and I see things that I just want to eliminate. And as Commissioner Button said earlier, we seem to be spending money on things, or wanting to spend money on things that aren't infrastructure. And it's hard for me to look at, we desperately need an economic development program, and we need a capital improvement program desperately, right? But we need to fix the infrastructure, because that's where the residents live. And so the budget for me is, I'm not going to be able to go there.
Anyone else? Roll call?
Menzer,
No.
Bunton,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Hill,
Yes.
Crop.
Yes.
Agenda item 9G, adoption of the resolution revising water and sewer rates. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the adoption of the resolution revising the water and sewer rates as presented. That's good to me.
Is there a second?
We'll discuss it.
I do have a question. Can somebody clarify what the difference is between agenda item 9G and agenda item 9H?
Yeah, it's wholesale and non-wholesale water and sewer rates. So wholesale is when we're providing services to another municipality. So the wholesale rates would be for Clinton Township, Harrison Township, those kind of organizations. The other rates are for residential usage of water. and
Okay,
sewer.
so 9G applies to
Correct.
residential use, okay.
G, say that again, G is?
G is for residential rates.
I heard you wrong.
H
Okay.
is for other communities.
Selfridge Air National Guard base is the other wholesale customer, I'm sorry. That's the one there.
There's no second.
There's no second? Okay.
Not going to discuss?
Motion fails then.
Agenda item 9I, approval of temporary relocation of voting precinct.
No.
No, you gotta do
Oh.
H.
Wholesale water
Oh,
rates.
okay. I guess I thought that included both. Okay, agenda item 9H, adoption of the resolution revising wholesale water rates.
Move to approve the adoption of the resolution revising the wholesale water rates as presented.
Support. Any discussion?
He's got to read it.
Oh,
Resolution is to
sorry.
revise the current wholesale water rates effective July 1st, 2016. These revised rates were reviewed with the commission at the budget review work sessions. City Engineer Kyle Seidel, AEW Incorporated, attended the April 5th, 2016 work session. The average annual rate to the wholesale water customers changes from between 5.3% and 11.8% increase. See attached 2017 fiscal year Mount Clemens rate study prepared by Kyle Seidel, AEW Incorporated. Wholesale customers shall share the expense of the water plant based on their average annual consumption. Additionally, each wholesale customer shares 1% of the transmission expense to deliver water from the water plant to the wholesale customer, and that was also brought forward by Linda Kuhn, our Finance Director Treasurer.
Can you explain once more why Harrison is getting an 11.8% increase when the other communities are less, or 5.3 and 5.7?
There's a fixed expense involved in transmitting that. There's a fixed expense in taking care of the other expenses that go along with it, and it's based on average annual consumption. So it's differences between consumption in those communities result in slightly different rates.
Because in 14, Harrison and Clinton were the exact same rates, and now and Clinton's only going up 5.7, but Harrison's going up 11.8.
Yeah, it's related to trends in consumption.
Ready to vote? Roll call?
Campbell.
Yes.
Hill.
Yes.
Crab.
Yes.
Menzer.
Yes.
Bunton.
Yes.
Okay, now agenda item 9I, approval of temporary relocation of voting precinct.
Move to approve the temporary relocation of voting precinct number 1 from CME Turner Chapel Church, 125 Clinton River Drive, to ML King Academy, 400 Clinton River Drive, for August 2nd, 2016 primary and November 8th, 2016 general election.
The city clerk's office
Was
is...
there a second?
I'm sorry, I thought we had that.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm always jumping the gun on that, sorry.
No, it's okay.
The city clerk's office is requesting approval to temporarily relocate voting precinct number 1, currently located at CME Turner Chapel Church, 125 Clinton River Drive, to ML King Academy, 400 Clinton River Drive. This temporary move would only be effective for the August 2nd and November 8th, 2016 general elections. The gymnasium at King Academy would provide a larger space that will adequately accommodate the anticipated higher voter turnout for these elections. Michigan election law states that a voting precinct cannot be moved less than 60 days prior to an election and requires approval of the city commission. There are 1,268 registered voters in precinct 1. All voters will be notified of the temporary move through a mailing in July. Also, signs will be posted at the entrance to Turner Chapel to direct voters to King Academy to vote at the August 2nd and November 8th elections. And that's brought forward by City Clerk Lisa Borges.
Commissioner Campbell?
I want to thank our city elections clerk here for her proactive approach to this problem.
Do I have to recuse myself since I'm one of those voters? Okay, just checking.
You're not getting any financial gain.
Okay, just checking.
Anything else? Okay, roll call.
We have one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make clear that I'm not sure that signs posted at the entrance that day and a mailing in July. I'm hoping that we do a little bit more, put in something in the paper to make sure that these residents know.
It'll go on the website.
Okay.
On the website as well, yeah.
All right.
And the cable channel as well.
And the cable channel? Hey, people, move to the voting. All right, we're good?
Okay, roll call?
Hill,
Yes.
Crap,
Yes.
Menzer,
Yes.
Bunton,
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Agenda item 9J.
Move to approve the purchase and payment of invoices
Second.
as presented.
Second.
Any questions? Roll call?
Crap,
Yes.
Menzer,
Yes.
Bunton,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Hill.
Yes. City managers report.
So a couple of items, one of which got teased a few minutes ago. Number one, employee insurance update. The city continues to provide information to employees regarding insurance changes discussed during the budget work session on April 25th. The change to the self-insurance financing model is proceeding and open enrollment meetings have been held. At the request of employees coming out of those open enrollment meetings, we have scheduled another informational meeting for the week of May 16th, open to all employees. Our benefit consultants, PM Group benefit advisors, have handled the open enrollment meetings and will also handle the upcoming meeting. I'm very confident we'll provide a great deal of helpful information for our employees, and we do want them to have a solid understanding of these important changes. Secondly, the road needs, which was mentioned earlier. The city develops what's called a pavement surface evaluation and rating, or PASER study, to rate the condition of our roads and to develop estimates of what our road needs would be in order to address those roads needs. A quick summary of that information is from the latest PASER study follows. There's a total of 52.8 miles of streets in the city of Mount Clemens, of which 18.5 are rated in good condition, 25.2 are rated in fair condition, and 9.1 miles are rated in poor condition. The 25.2 miles that are in fair condition, the estimated cost of a resurfacing effort to bring them up to good condition is a cost of $21 million. The poor condition roads that have gone further in terms of their deterioration, the estimated cost of a reconstruction on those roads is $16 million. Doing the connection of those two figures, you have a current projected cost to bring all roads in the city to good or better condition of approximately $37 million. Then we also did some math on the basic miles and costs and came up with a cost per mile for resurfacing is about $800,000 per mile, and reconstruction is about $1.8 million per mile. And that information is just provided to show a little perspective on the infrastructure challenges in the city of Mount Clemens. If we were going to bring all of our roads up to just good condition, we would have to expend $37 million on a budget, general fund budget of around $10 million. Obviously, that's a difficult task. The third point that I had brought up is a late piece of news that came late in the week last week. This mayor and commission had the foresight to vote in favor of a bond refunding that would refund parking improvement project bonds issued in 2003. That refunding was finalized on May 12th of 2016, that being Friday or Thursday of last week. As part of your consideration of that item, on April 18th, the following projections were made. The target interest rate was hopefully going to be 2.5% or less. The projected savings were forecast to be approximately $150,000 over the 7 years remaining on the bonds, or a little over $21,000 per year. After some tense moments on the day of closing, we had actual results achieved as follows. Bonds were refunded at 1.99%. And the savings realized should be $219,000 over the remaining 7 years of the bonds, or over $31,000 a year. So these were excellent results, and I wanted to congratulate our finance director, Linda Kunith, as well as our consultant partners that worked with us in putting together this very successful refunding of bonds that achieved very meaningful savings for the city and really did exceed all expectations going into our undertaking of that event. So well exceeded our hoped-for results, and we're very pleased with that. It reflects well on the efforts of the city. It reflects well on the efforts that went into the bond refunding. So,
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager? Okay, commissioner comments, and we will start with Commissioner Campbell.
Okay, a couple of things regarding the meeting tonight. Regarding the sidewalks, with regards to the two residents that were here, I think a meeting needs to be put together like tomorrow regarding these issues that have been brought forth, because they are unacceptable. Regarding the bushes in Shadyside Park, I hope that that can be addressed. Also, as tomorrow. I would like to thank Mr. Dixon for his kind words that he gave to us tonight. And also, I want to say that I would like to say thank you to all our dedicated city employees for your service, and that it does not go unnoticed. Thank you.
Commissioner Kraft.
I would like to first ditto Commissioner Campbell's last statement about the employees of the city. Thank you very much. And then I'd also like to talk about the Second Chance Network on May 7th was in our city in the streets, and they were collecting for what they claimed to be the homeless. And we begrudgingly approved that, I guess you would say, loitering. And I thought, I drove through the city several times that day, actually within the 2 days, I believe it was May 7th and May 8th. On several occasions, they were in the middle of the street during green lights. They were impeding traffic. They were aggressively approaching cars. They were staring people down. I know I had that experience, and I know some city employees had that experience, and they expressed it to me. I believe the sheriff was even called. So I would just encourage us that we need to look at that ordinance again that allows that, and hopefully we need to address it to avoid that. I think it also it was an eyesore, if nothing else. I really have thought for a long time that we need to address Shadyside. Not only is it overgrown and it's a problem with homeless and undesirable activities, but it's not a reflection of our community, and it's certainly not a reflection that we want to continue. And I don't allow my children to play on the playground equipment, and I'm uncomfortable allowing that to be there for any children in our city. I'm trying to work with some groups, and we'll see where that goes, but I encourage the city to do the same. I'd like to see, I think it's way past time. I understand budget constraints, but I just think it's becoming a liability. I was encouraged to hear about another city's appeal process for the sidewalks. It sounds like something that we need to do. We keep hearing issues with the sidewalk program, even though we deny that it's a program. And we need to fix that. And we need to be better stewards for the residents so that there is an outlet. Someone should not just be able to say, we deem this so. And under full disclosure and transparency, Monica Baker is my mother. So I will mention that. May 24th, the DDA is starting a new program with a walking and run club. Also under, this is a full transparency, and this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart, fitness and getting your family moving. This is a wonderful opportunity. Myself, my kids, if we don't have T-ball and baseball, we'll be there on May 24th. If not, we'll be there in the next Tuesdays to come. I think it's a really great opportunity for people to get moving and to also become closer with your neighbors. I think that's something we don't do so much. Maybe you friend them on Facebook, but you don't actually see them in real life. So get out there and move. I think it can't hurt anything, except maybe your feet. Get some good shoes. My next coffee talk, Commissioner Coffee Talk, I first want to thank everyone for coming out who, we had some new faces, and that's always encouraging. The next coffee talk will be at John's Family Grill on 304 Cass, and that's June 14th and June 18th. So I encourage everyone who's interested to come out and chat. That's all I have.
Commissioner Menstrom. Interestingly enough, I also got some calls about the Second Chance Network in the streets, and people were very disappointed in the appearance and the method of collection. And I think we had talked about originally limiting these type of collections to 501c3 ordinances. Second Chance Network is not a 501c3 ordinance, and to me that makes a difference, or a 501c3 approved company, and that makes a difference. So May 14th through 21st is Armed Forces Week, and it's also National Military Appreciation Month in May. Armed Forces Day is this week, Saturday. Please thank a veteran. It also happens to be National Police Officers Week. Please thank an officer. The Senior Fun Fest is this Friday from 9 to 1 at Gibraltar. We talked about that last session. Free health screenings and wellness activities for seniors over 60. Please take advantage of that. I wanted to say first, happy 90th birthday, Grandma Stark. I hope you had a great time. And then I wanted to bring up the fact that the Macomb Daily is doing the best of the best again, and we have a lot of local businesses that are up for awards. Three Blind Mice is up for 3 awards: Best Beer Selection, Best Sunday Brunch, and Best New Restaurant. Max and Ollie's is up for 3 awards. Antique Shops, Gift Shop Boutique, and Unique Store. Seaburgers is up for a couple awards, Best Hamburger Place and Best Lunch Place. But in addition, we also have Gus's up for Best Coney Island, Thai Orchid up for Best Thai Food. We have East Side Tavern, one of my favorites, also up for Hamburger Place. We have Pollyanna's over on North Avenue near Elizabeth, who's up for Best Antique Shop. Farmers Market in Mount Clemens has been nominated. The Mount Clemens Downtown Merchants have been nominated for Best Local Shopping District. The Train Museum was nominated for Local Museum. And the one thing that I don't, and first of all, I congratulate all these businesses, because at one time or another, I've been in all of them. But what I don't see on here, and what the DDA caught me red-handed at last week Saturday, or I'm sorry, the Saturday before, was I was in Champagne Chocolates, and as far as I'm concerned, they are the best chocolate shop in the city, bar none. I know, I was caught red-handed. I was trying to go in there all incognito. So I congratulate all these businesses for their nominations, and I encourage you to visit them all. In addition to these businesses, I want you to know we ordered from work a slew of food from Gumbo's. If you like New Orleans food, I can't say it right, New Orleans food, if you like shrimp, if you like jambalaya, if you like gumbo, please, please, just try that shop. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Bunton?
Actually, I like to eat, and that's one of my favorite places for it.
Yay.
But anyway, last week I gave a thanks to the people who participated in the drug take-back, and since that time I found out that we weren't as profitable as we thought we would be. But you know what? If we took 1 pound of drugs off the streets, out of the hands of people, to me that's a success. It's not going down the toilet and polluting our land. It's not polluting our water system, so it's a success. But we do it twice a year, so September we'll be right back at it. I want to thank Linda also for the hard work she's put in, and I thank you so much. Shady Side Park has been a thorn in my side for a while, and it's where you come into the city, and the first thing you see when you come into the city, and it really needs to be taken care of. At one time there was a Mount Clemens coalition that went around and tried to fix parks, and they said that the amount of money it would take to fix Shady Side was just too much for them to handle at the time. I think that we need to make an investment in that somewhere, somehow, to get that done. Again, Shady Side could be a really exemplary park if we put some effort into it. I want to thank the city employees for showing up tonight, and I want to thank them also for the work that they do. Sometimes it's not as well noted, but you're actually the backbone of the city, so we do appreciate you. I agree with what was said about the appeals process for the, well, for any kind of construction around here that's it's cited to be done. If there's a problem and you don't think you're being handled fairly, I think that we ought to institute some kind of appeal process where your case can be heard. I know that we do have a Board of Appeals for regulations, but I think there should be a Board of Appeals for other citations and other things of that nature. We can work on that. I guess I'll explain the fact that I usually give you a lot of details of things that are happening during the month, and my neighbor next to me here has already gone through some of that. But the reason I do that is because I also feature the things that go on as Negro History Week or African American History Week and Martin Luther King and all that. So, I have to spread it around, do for everybody. And I think that everybody that is a part of the melting pot that is America should be recognized for their contribution, their ancestors' contribution as well. With that, we'll move into Commissioner Wisdoms. And I have two for the day. First one, I have no idea who said it first or whatever, but nevertheless. The key to successful leadership is surround yourself with competent people and take their advice. The next one I'll give you is by Henry Clay. Statistics are no substitute for judgment. And with that, we'll say good night.
Thank you. Just to chime in on the sidewalk issue, I had one very insistent person that was very concerned about something really not related to the sidewalks directly, but to a tree. There is some work on South Wilson and Church Street, and in putting in that walk, they chopped away roots on two sides of that tree, and this individual is very concerned about whether that tree is going to survive or whether it's going to have to be taken down. So if anybody has any insight on that issue, I would appreciate it, because every time I see her, she asks me about it. Anyway, I want to congratulate our finance director on the refunding of the bonds. I think it was even more successful than we had hoped, and it will save the city significant amount of money, and so good work. I thought the presentation about the redevelopment-ready communities was very interesting tonight. It did make me a little tired because there's a lot of work that we have to do, but I think it will be well worth the while, and I hope we can move in that direction. And lastly, we conducted a lot of business tonight. We had a long meeting. I predicted ahead of time that it was going to be an interesting meeting, and I was absolutely right, it was. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm feeling kind of tired. But I do think that we handled some important issues. We had some good discussion, and so it was all worthwhile. So I hope everybody has a good evening and a great week, and I need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.